They told you that your light wasn't enough, that your glow was too soft, too quiet, too unimportant to ever lead a path. They tried to convince you that power belonged to the loud, the fierce, the ruthless, and maybe for a while you believed them. Maybe you silenced your soul to match their noise. Maybe you dimmed your light so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable by your brilliance. But today that ends.
Beautiful.
Because the most unstoppable power is not noise, it's energy, it's alignment. It's the fire that burns quietly inside you, waiting to be claimed. That's the energy of an empowered light coach. And that's what you're becoming right now. The truth is, you were never meant to follow. You were never meant to shrink or be invisible. You were built for transformation, not just your own, but the transformation of everyone who dares to walk beside you. You were built to lead without domination, to rise without competition, to speak without screaming. Your light isn't just for display, it's for direction. It's a torch, a map, a compass. But first you have to trust it. Trust that your inner light is not fragile, it's focused. It's not fading, it's awakening. And once you recognize its strength, you'll realize you were never lost. You were simply unlit. True empowerment begins the moment you understand that your inner light is not fragile, it's focused. This is more than a metaphor, it's a reminder that your core energy, your deepest potential, isn't something delicate that needs protection. It's a concentrated force waiting for activation. For too long, people have mistaken gentleness for weakness, softness for passivity, and quiet power for lack of leadership. But real empowerment flips that narrative. Your light doesn't flicker under pressure, it sharpens. And when you stop treating your inner fire like something that needs permission to burn, everything changes. Many people grow up conditioned to believe they have to tone down their presence in order to be accepted. They're taught to second-guess their intuition, dim their ambition, and silence their boldness in order to fit in. Slowly, that repeated self-abandonment starts to feel normal. It becomes a habit. The light doesn't go out, it just hides. And that's the danger, not that people lose their power, but that they stop believing it exists at all. They walk through life feeling like spectators instead of creators. They wait for others to define their value, to tell them when it's okay to rise, to shine, to lead. But the truth is, no one else holds the switch to your light. You do. The moment you realize that your light isn't something that needs to be earned, but something that's always been yours, you shift from fear to freedom. You stop begging for opportunities and start creating them. You stop playing small to make others comfortable and start standing tall to make your purpose undeniable. Because your focus, your presence, your energy, it all starts from within. It's not about being flashy or loud, it's about being clear. When your light is focused, so is your mission, so is your vision, so is your impact. And people feel that. They may not know what it is, but they know they're in the presence of someone who has nothing to prove and everything to offer. Think about a laser. It's not powerful because it's bright. It's powerful because it's concentrated. In the same way, your focus, energy, your clarity of purpose, your alignment with your values, your refusal to be anything less than real is what gives you unshakable power. People who are truly empowered don't scatter their energy trying to please everyone. They don't dilute themselves for acceptance. They don't apologize for taking up space. They stand in their light and let it do the work. And the world responds to that alignment. Because people aren't just looking for inspiration, they're looking for permission. They're looking for someone to model what it looks like to be fully lit from within. And that someone can be you, but you have to stop viewing your sensitivity, your kindness, your quiet intensity as weaknesses. They are your edge, they are your signature. They are the very things that make you irreplaceable. Being focused doesn't mean you're rigid, it means you're intentional. It means you know your worth, your lane, your voice. It means you're not swayed by every opinion, every comparison, every temporary emotion. It means you're rooted in truth. And when you're rooted, nothing can uproot you, not fear, not rejection, not uncertainty. There's a moment in every person's journey when they have to choose, will I continue hiding behind the story that I'm not enough, or will I choose to live like the light I already am? That choice isn't just made once, it's made daily. In every decision, every boundary, every time you show up when it's easier to stay small. Empowerment is a practice and your light is a tool. Not just to be admired, but to be used, to guide others, to build legacies, to disrupt patterns, to heal generations. But none of that happens if you continue believing your light is too fragile for the world. You are not here to survive, you are here to shine. And not just in good times, but in the storms, the rejections, the lonely nights when the world feels too heavy. Those are the moments that test your focus. Will you let your light scatter in fear, or will you gather your power and shine with precision? Will you trust that the same force that brought you this far won't let you fall now? That's the difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck. The empowered ones understand their light was never the problem. It was their doubt, their delay, their disconnection. So plug back in, not to outside opinions, but to your core truth. Focus your energy like the force it was always meant to be. Your light doesn't need to be louder, it needs to be trusted. And once you trust it, the world begins to. Not because you demanded it, but because your focused presence becomes undeniable. You stop chasing and you start attracting, you stop shrinking and you start shining. And from that place, everything you've ever dreamed of doesn't just become possible, it becomes inevitable. You were never meant to shrink or blend in. That truth may sound simple, but it challenges years of conditioning, fear, and societal pressure. From a young age, many people are taught to be quiet, to play it safe, to avoid standing out too much. Whether through spoken words or subtle expectations, the message is often clear: don't shine too bright, don't make people uncomfortable, don't disrupt the norm. So you learn to adjust. You lower your voice. You question your instincts. You take up less space in rooms where you should have been the one leading. But over time, that shrinking doesn't just silence your potential, it suffocates your purpose. There's a version of you that's bold, grounded, unapologetic, a version that's not afraid to speak up, to claim space, to lead with heart and fire. That version is not a fantasy, it's not someone far away. It's you underneath the layers of doubt, fear, and people-pleasing. And the only thing separating you from that version is the decision to stop hiding. You don't need to become someone else. You need to return to who you were before the world told you to dim your light. That hesitation you feel when you're about to make a bold move, speak your truth, or take a stand, that's not weakness. It's not fear trying to stop you. It's growth knocking. It's your next level calling. It's your higher self reminding you that you're not meant to be invisible. Every time you choose to shrink, you deny the world of your impact. Every time you second-guess your voice, your gifts, your vision, you rob others of the light they could receive from your courage. You don't need to be louder than everyone, you just need to be louder than your own doubt. That's where true transformation begins. When you stop trying to blend in and start standing out, not for attention but for alignment. Because you were never created to be average. You were created to be an answer, a presence, a force. And the more you embrace that, the more the right people, opportunities, and breakthroughs will align with your path. The pressure you feel isn't a sign to give up. It's the tension before the rise. It's your soul expanding beyond the limits you once placed on it. The real glow-up doesn't happen when you finally feel ready. It happens when you step forward despite feeling unprepared. Because empowerment isn't about confidence. It's about courage. It's about doing it afraid. Speaking up while your voice shakes, showing up even when you feel unseen. And every time you do that, your energy strengthens. Your presence sharpens. Your light focuses. You don't become powerful all at once. You become powerful moment by moment, decision by decision, by refusing to blend in when your soul is begging to stand out. You're not here to match the world, you're here to move it. But you can't move anything if you keep hiding your gifts. So let go of the false belief that your presence is too much, your dreams too big, your voice too bold. They are exactly what's needed right now. And when you stop editing yourself to make others comfortable, you'll find yourself attracting the spaces and people where you don't just fit, you lead. Because those who shine give others permission to do the same. And your rise becomes a roadmap for someone else's breakthrough. People don't follow perfection, they follow realness. That's why your magnetism begins with authenticity. Too often, people believe that being influential or inspirational means putting on a mask, curating a flawless image, or always having the right words. But the truth is, people connect with truth. They resonate with vulnerability. They follow those who show up fully, not just polished. When you try to be perfect, you build distance. But when you're honest about your struggles, your lessons, your growth, you build bridges. And those bridges are what make people trust you, feel safe with you, and want to learn from you. Your authenticity is your superpower. It's what makes your energy unforgettable. You don't need to hide your wounds to lead. You need to show how you turn them into wisdom. Because every scar, every failure, every challenge you've faced isn't a sign of weakness. It's proof of your resilience. And when you wear your truth boldly, you stand out in a world full of filters and facades. That's the kind of leadership that doesn't just inspire, it transforms. The more real you become, the more powerful your light becomes. Because people are starving for depth, for meaning, for leaders who have walked through the fire and still rise with grace. You don't need to perform strength, you just need to be you, fully, unapologetically, authentically. That's what draws others in. That's what builds movements. That's what changes lives. When you stop trying to be liked and start focusing on being true, you stop chasing validation and start attracting alignment. And from that place, your light becomes more than a glow, it becomes a guide. Real leadership begins in silence and pain. This is the truth that most people overlook in a world that celebrates loud confidence and polished appearances. We often imagine leaders as those who are always composed, always certain, and always charismatic. But true leadership isn't built in the spotlight, it's built in the shadows. It's forged in quiet moments of self-doubt, in private tears, in sleepless nights when nothing makes sense but giving up still isn't an option. Real leaders aren't born from applause, they're shaped by adversity. And the ones who rise are the ones who decide to keep going even when no one is watching, clapping, or believing. It's in your hardest seasons that your voice starts to develop its most honest tone. It's in your failures that your wisdom deepens. The pain you think disqualifies you is actually what prepares you, because the more you go through, the more you can relate to. You can't fake authenticity when you've walked through real fire. And people can feel that, they can sense when your words come from experience, not theory. That's why the most powerful coaches, guides, and leaders don't lead from ego. They lead from empathy. They've been there. They know what it's like to feel lost, rejected, broken, or unseen. And because they've risen from that place, they become a living reminder to others that rising is possible. You don't have to wait until you're perfect to lead. You don't need to have every answer, every detail, or every outcome mapped out. What you need is to be honest. People don't trust perfection, they trust presence, and your presence becomes magnetic when it's rooted in truth. When you stop trying to prove and start trying to connect. When your leadership becomes less about being impressive and more about being impactful. The pain you've survived, the battles you've won, the quiet victories no one ever saw, all of it matters. All of it has shaped you into someone who can now walk with power, humility, and grace. And when that becomes your energy, people will follow, not because of what you say, but because of what you've lived. Empowerment is not a trend, it's a decision. Too often we treat empowerment like it's something that randomly shows up one day, or something we find in a quote, or something that someone else can give us. But empowerment isn't something you receive, it's something you choose. Every single day. You wake up and decide to show up. You decide to believe in yourself even when the doubt screams louder. You decide to move even when fear tries to paralyze you. Empowerment isn't about waiting for the right time, it's about declaring that this is your time. Every day is an opportunity to reclaim your power, to remember who you are, to stop living in reaction and start living with intention. You don't become empowered by talking about it, you become empowered by acting on it. By setting boundaries that protect your peace, by choosing goals that stretch your soul, by saying no to the things that drain you and yes to the things that build you. Empowerment means being your own source. It means you stop outsourcing your confidence to other people's opinions. It means you stop seeking validation and start giving yourself permission. And no one sees that decision. No one sees the early mornings, the journaling, the internal battles, the moments when you almost quit but didn't. But those are the exact moments where empowerment is built in silence, in solitude, in resilience. And the more consistently you choose to rise, the more powerful you become, not because your circumstances change, but because your mindset does. You realize that nothing outside of you can make or break you. You are the foundation, you are the source, you are the force that moves things forward. And that shift in perspective is what transforms a person from passive to powerful. Failure is redirection, not rejection. This one truth, if embraced fully, can change everything. Because failure is not a dead end, it's a detour. It's not proof that you're not good enough. It's proof that you're trying, that you're stretching, learning, evolving. People who avoid failure also avoid growth. They stay safe, but they stay stuck. And the ones who succeed, they've failed more times than most people have tried. They've fallen, but they've gotten up faster. They've taken hits, but they've turned them into fuel because they understand that failure isn't personal, it's educational. Every failure has something to teach. It reveals blind spots, it strengthens character, it forces adaptation, but only if you're willing to look at it through the lens of growth, not defeat. When you start seeing failure as feedback, you stop fearing it, you stop letting it define your identity and start letting it refine your ability. You become more precise, more resilient, more focused, and suddenly every closed door becomes a signal to reroute, not to retreat. You can't lead effectively if you haven't learned how to fail powerfully. That means failing forward. That means failing with your head held high. That means taking the lesson, not the label. You are not your setbacks. You are your comebacks. And the more you embrace that, the more unstoppable you become. Because someone who isn't afraid to fail is someone who will always keep moving, and movement, no matter how messy, is the seed of momentum. That's how leaders are built. Not by avoiding struggle, but by mastering how to rise through it. Your energy leads before your voice does. This is a reality that many people underestimate. In a world where words are often polished and practiced, it's easy to assume that what we say carries the most weight. But the truth is, the way you carry yourself, the way you walk into a room, the silent message your presence delivers, all of that speaks before your first word ever leaves your mouth. Energy is the first language people understand. Before they decide to listen to you, they feel you. They sense your confidence, your alignment, your focus, your intention. That's why true leadership doesn't start with speaking louder, it starts with being more present. When you walk in alignment with who you are, when you live in truth, when you are not pretending or performing, you radiate an undeniable energy. People may not be able to explain it, but they feel it. That energy comes from inner clarity. It comes from knowing your purpose, owning your story, and choosing to lead from your center. You don't need to be the loudest voice in the room to be the most powerful one. You don't need to dominate conversations to influence minds. You just need to be aligned, consistent, and clear. That quiet confidence born from living authentically is louder than any speech. Think of the people who truly impact you. They don't necessarily have the most polished words or the most flamboyant style. They have presence. They have depth. They carry a calm certainty that makes you want to lean in, to listen, to trust. That's what your energy does when it's empowered. It creates space. It creates connection. It draws the right people, opportunities, and breakthroughs toward you, not because you chase them, but because you become the kind of person who magnetizes them. That's what it means to lead with your energy. It's not about force, it's about frequency. Your energy cannot lie. You can dress it up, mask it temporarily, or distract from it, but eventually your inner state becomes your outer experience. That's why working on your mindset, healing your past, building self-trust, and staying rooted in your values are not just personal development, they're leadership essentials. You can't fake alignment for long. And the people you're meant to serve, inspire, and lead, they're not looking for performance. They're looking for presence. For someone who's real, who's grounded, who walks the talk. And here's the thing, when your energy is aligned, your voice becomes even more impactful. Your words start to carry a different weight. Because people aren't just hearing your thoughts, they're feeling your conviction, and that resonance, that's what moves people. That's what builds trust. That's what makes you unforgettable. But the opposite is also true. When your energy is scattered, uncertain, or inauthentic, no matter how powerful your words are, something doesn't land, something feels off. That's why before you try to lead others, speak powerfully, or teach with conviction, you have to do the inner work that empowers your energy. You don't need to wait until you have everything figured out to walk in your light. You just need to be honest with where you are and intentional with where you're going. Your energy will speak for you, your resilience will radiate, your discipline will echo. That's how legacy is built, not through noise, but through consistency. You don't need to convince people of your worth. Just live it. Just walk it. Just be it. That's how your energy begins to lead. You are not just a light, you are a lighthouse. That is not just a poetic phrase, it's a truth that describes your higher purpose. A lighthouse doesn't chase ships. It doesn't beg to be seen. It simply stands where it is, fully lit, unwavering in the storm, guiding those who are ready to find their way. That's your role. That's your power. When you own your presence, when you choose to live lit from within, you automatically become a guide for others. You don't have to prove your value. You just have to shine. This kind of leadership doesn't require titles, degrees, or followers. It requires alignment. It requires integrity. It requires standing tall when others shrink. It requires being consistent in a world obsessed with trends. And when you live that way, your very existence becomes a beacon. You become the proof that it's possible, that you can lead without ego, impact without noise, and shine without fear. The people who are watching you, the ones who are quietly struggling, silently searching, they see you, they feel your light, and your consistency gives them the courage to begin their own transformation. You don't become a lighthouse by accident. You become one by choosing not to dim, even when it's hard, by standing in your truth, even when it's lonely, by being a source of clarity in a world full of confusion. And when you do that, your light becomes more than a personal breakthrough. It becomes a collective blessing. You are not just here to glow, you are here to guide. And every time you lead with your energy, you fulfill that calling more powerfully than words ever could. People follow realness, not perfection. This truth can completely transform how you show up in the world if you allow it to sink in a time where everything seems curated, where people carefully filter their images, rehearse their speeches, and showcase only the highlight reels. It's easy to believe that you have to present yourself as flawless in order to be admired, followed, or respected. But that's a lie that keeps people stuck, disconnected, and burnt out. What really creates connection isn't perfection, it's presence, it's honesty, it's someone who shows up with truth even when that truth is still a little messy, because people don't want to be impressed as much as they want to feel seen, understood, and safe, and only realness creates that kind of space. When you are real, when you are transparent about your journey, your struggles, your learning curve, people lean in. They don't see you as less powerful, they see you as more human, and in that humanity they find hope. They realize they're not alone. They see their own story in yours, and suddenly your leadership becomes a mirror reflecting back the strength they didn't know they had. That's the power of authenticity. It doesn't just connect, it liberates. It allows people to stop performing and start healing. It builds a bond that's rooted in truth, not illusion. Trying to be perfect is exhausting. It disconnects you from your own power. When you focus all your energy on appearing like you have it all together, you suppress the very parts of you that could set someone else free. You lock up the lessons in your wounds. You silence the wisdom in your failures. You turn your life into a performance rather than a platform. And that performance may attract attention, but it won't create impact. People may applaud your image, but they won't trust your leadership, because deep down, we all know that no one has it all figured out. We don't need another polished mask. We need more raw courage. You weren't meant to be perfect. You were meant to be powerful. And realness is where your power lives. The strength to show up vulnerable. The courage to say, I'm still learning, but I'm not quitting. The humility to admit, I got it wrong, but I'm growing. That's what makes you magnetic. That's what builds trust. That's what turns a coach into a leader and a message into a movement. When people see that you've walked through fire and didn't pretend it was easy, they believe they can do it too. Your story becomes the evidence that healing is possible, that rising is possible, that greatness is possible even when the road is rough. You don't need to be at the finish line to lead. You can lead from the middle. You can lead from the climb. You can lead from the place where you're still figuring things out. In fact, that's often the most powerful place to lead from, because it's relatable, it's grounded, it's human, and humanity is what people are drawn to. Not the illusion of perfection, but the reality of transformation. And transformation is messy, it's non-linear, it's full of doubts, breakdowns, restarts, and breakthroughs. When you hide that process, you make others feel like they're behind. But when you reveal it, you remind them that they're right where they need to be. Being real doesn't mean being negative. It doesn't mean unloading your pain without purpose. It means owning your truth and sharing it in a way that empowers others. It means saying, here's where I've been, here's what I've learned, and here's how I'm moving forward. It means standing in your truth with strength, not shame, because there's no shame in growing. There's no shame in evolving. The only shame is in pretending to be someone you're not, just to impress people who don't even know the full story. The leaders who make the greatest impact aren't the ones who look perfect, they're the ones who feel real, who aren't afraid to say me too, who aren't afraid to speak up when it's uncomfortable, who are willing to be seen in both their strength and their struggle. And when you become that kind of leader, when you stop chasing image and start choosing integrity, your influence deepens, your voice gets stronger, your light shines brighter, because now you're not performing, you're empowering, you're not pretending, you're paving the way. So don't try to be perfect. Be honest, be grounded, be real. That's what draws people in. That's what builds movements. That's what leaves legacies. When you give up the need to be flawless, you gain the ability to be free. And in that freedom, your energy becomes unstoppable. You no longer seek to be liked. You seek to be true. And in that truth, you'll find everything you were looking for. Not just influence, but impact. Not just applause, but alignment. Not just attention, but trust. And that trust, that's where your legacy begins. You can't lead effectively if you haven't learned how to fail powerfully. Failure is redirection, not rejection. This truth separates those who rise into leadership from those who retreat into fear. Most people are conditioned to fear failure, to avoid it, to see it as a final verdict on their worth or capability. But that mindset keeps you stuck. It traps you in perfectionism, in hesitation, in the illusion that only flawless execution is worthy of reward. Real growth doesn't come from success alone. It comes from learning how to fail forward. Every time you fall and rise again, you build something unshakable inside yourself. Every setback you overcome becomes a stepping stone toward a stronger, wiser, and more grounded version of you. Failure isn't a signal to stop, it's a sign to shift. When a door closes, it doesn't mean you're not enough. It might mean it wasn't your door. Or maybe it means there's more preparation needed before the next breakthrough. But it never means you should give up. The empowered mindset reframes every no into not yet and every loss into a lesson. That's what makes leaders unstoppable. They don't crumble under pressure, they rise with perspective. They don't make failure their identity, they make it their education. They aren't ashamed of it, they leverage it. One of the most powerful things you can ever do is look at failure and say, thank you. Thank you for showing me what doesn't work. Thank you for revealing where I still need to grow. Thank you for proving that I was brave enough to try. Because that's what failure really is, proof of effort. Evidence of movement, a sign that you dared to take a risk when it was easier to play it safe. Most people never step into greatness because they never even step into the arena. They're so afraid of falling that they never fly. But those who understand the power of failure don't fear falling, they fear not growing. Leadership that has never been tested is shallow. But leadership that has been refined by rejection, resistance, and realignment is powerful. When you've walked through failure and kept going, you lead with depth. You lead with compassion. You lead with humility. Because you know how it feels to fall. And because you've gotten back up, you can help others do the same. Your story becomes a survival guide. Your experience becomes a roadmap. And your resilience becomes a beacon for others who are in the middle of their own storm. People don't just want to follow someone who's always winning. They want to follow someone who knows how to keep going when they're losing. That kind of leadership builds trust because it shows that your strength isn't situational, it's foundational. You're not just strong when things are easy. You're strong when things are hard. You're not just committed when everything's going well. You're committed when nothing seems to make sense, but you show up anyway. That's what earns respect. Not perfection, but persistence. Failure also refines your focus. Every time something doesn't work out, it forces you to ask deeper questions. Is this the right path? Is this truly aligned with my purpose? Is this challenge redirecting me towards something even greater? Those questions are what sharpen your clarity. And clarity is one of the most powerful tools a leader can have. Without failure, you might drift. You might follow someone else's path. You might keep chasing success that isn't even fulfilling. But when failure steps in, it brings truth with it. It shows you what you really want, what truly matters, and what you're willing to fight for. There is no shame in failing. The only shame is in letting failure define you. You're not your missed opportunities. You're not your past mistakes. You are who you choose to become after those moments. And every time you rise again, you rewrite your story. You prove that failure isn't the end, it's part of the journey. A necessary part. Because every empowered person, every successful coach, every impactful leader has a failure story behind their power. They didn't get there by skipping the fall. They got there by standing back up with more wisdom, more fire, and more clarity than before. The more you embrace failure, the less power it has over you. You stop fearing it and you start using it. It becomes a tool, not a trap, a guide, not a grave. And the more you lean into that, the more unstoppable you become. Because you're no longer afraid of what might go wrong. You're focused on what could go right. You're not playing small to avoid pain, you're playing bold because you've survived worse. That's the kind of energy that changes everything. That's the kind of mindset that turns failure into fuel. That's what makes you powerful, unshakable, and truly free. Your energy leads before your voice does. Before a single word leaves your mouth, people feel your presence. They sense your intention, your clarity, your groundedness, or your chaos, insecurity, or self-doubt. Long before you explain who you are, the way you show up already communicates it. That's why empowered leadership is not just about what you say, but who you are when you say it. It's not just about crafting the perfect message, it's about embodying the message in your actions, your attitude, and your aura. You can't fake energy. People know the difference between someone who's aligned and someone who's performing. And true influence isn't built on performance, it's built on embodiment. When you walk into a room fully rooted in who you are without shrinking or trying to impress, that confidence speaks volumes. When you've done the inner work to align your actions with your values, your presence automatically commands attention. You don't have to fight for space or beg to be seen. Your energy creates its own gravity. You become magnetic, not because you're loud or flashy, but because your essence is congruent. There's no inner war between who you are and how you show up. You walk in your truth and people feel safe in your presence because it's real. People often focus on trying to say the right things to be respected, but they miss the deeper truth. Your words carry weight only when they are backed by energy that is centered, clear, and grounded. If you speak about peace but carry chaos in your spirit, people won't believe you. If you talk about confidence but your body language screams insecurity, the message won't land. But if your energy is aligned, even your silence is powerful. You don't need to over-explain yourself when your aura already reflects truth. That's the essence of powerful leadership. It's not about proving, it's about being. Energy doesn't lie. You can tell when someone walks into a space with integrity. You feel it. It's not arrogance, it's not ego, it's presence, it's stillness of someone who's no longer performing for approval. It's the quiet power of someone who's moved beyond needing validation and into trusting their worth. That kind of person doesn't need to dominate a room, they elevate it. Their presence uplifts, calms, empowers. They don't compete, they inspire. They don't push, they lead. This is why internal work matters more than external polish. You can memorize the best scripts, wear the sharpest clothes, and study the smartest strategies, but if your energy is inconsistent, disconnected, or desperate, none of it will land. People are intuitive. They pick up on the unspoken. They're not just listening to your words, they're reading your energy, and energy always speaks louder. That's why real transformation begins within. The more you align with your truth, heal your wounds, and stand in your purpose, the stronger your energetic presence becomes, and that presence is your power. Your voice matters, but your energy amplifies it. When you speak from a place of wholeness, people listen differently. They don't just hear your words, they feel your conviction. They're moved by your authenticity. They see themselves in your story. Because you're not just delivering a message, you're living it. You become a transmission of the very truth you're teaching. That's how transformation happens. That's how leaders ignite change. Not by shouting louder, but by standing firmer in their inner truth. Sometimes the most powerful moments in leadership don't come from what you say, but from how you show up. The way you hold space. The way you listen. The way you stay calm under pressure. The way you lead yourself, even when no one is watching. That's the kind of energy that shifts atmospheres. That's the kind of presence that moves people, not just emotionally, but energetically. Because people don't remember every word you say. They remember how you made them feel. They remember the strength you radiated. They remember the courage in your eyes and the conviction in your steps. You don't need a microphone to influence people, you just need alignment. When your internal state matches your external posture, your leadership becomes undeniable. You no longer have to force impact. You become impact. You no longer seek to be noticed. You're already felt. That's what it means to lead with energy. It's not about hype. It's about harmony. It's about making sure the energy you carry is louder than the noise of the world around you. That's what leaves a legacy. That's what earns trust. That's what empowers others to rise. So stop chasing attention with words alone. Start refining your energy. Show up with clarity, compassion, courage, and conviction. Do the inner work. Build emotional discipline. Heal your trauma. Walk with intention. Because when your energy is right, your influence is undeniable. You don't need to speak first. Your presence already opened the door. You don't need to convince anyone. Your vibration already leads. And once you realize the true power of your energy, you'll stop trying to fit in and start allowing your essence to lead the way. You are not just a light, you are a lighthouse. That statement holds more power than most people realize. Because being a light means you glow, you radiate, you bring warmth and visibility. But being a lighthouse means you guide. You lead others through storms. You don't just shine in good weather. You stay lit when everything around you is dark. You become a point of reference when the waves of life feel overwhelming to others. That is the essence of being an empowered leader. Not someone who shines for attention, but someone who shines to serve. You weren't born to just find your way. You were born to help others find theirs, and this requires courage, consistency, and commitment. A lighthouse doesn't turn off when no one is looking. It keeps glowing because someone somewhere needs it. That's what you are called to do. Your light is not for decoration, it's for direction. It's not here just to look beautiful, it's here to be useful. Every struggle you've endured, every lesson you've learned, every mountain you've climbed, they've all built the brightness you carry. And now that light is meant to serve a purpose far greater than you. You don't have to be perfect to be a lighthouse. You just have to be willing to stand tall in truth, willing to stay grounded when storms come, willing to keep showing up even when you're tired, willing to reflect hope even when your own hope feels small. Because leadership isn't always loud. It's not about shouting instructions from a pedestal. Sometimes it's silent presence. Sometimes it's just being there, being steady, being real. That's the kind of light that changes lives, not through pressure, but through presence. Think of all the people out there sailing through storms, people lost in doubt, fear, confusion, people who feel like they have no compass, no direction, no clarity. Your light might be the first sign of safety they've seen in a long time. Your resilience might remind them that survival is possible. Your authenticity might show them that healing is real, and your strength might ignite theirs. This is not about being anyone's savior. It's about being a source, a reflection, a reminder, a light that says, keep going, I've made it through. You can too. Being a lighthouse means you take ownership of your energy. You don't dim for anyone. You don't flicker based on external opinions. You become stable, rooted, intentional. You rise above the waves, not because you're unaffected by life, but because you've learned how to stand firm in it. That's power, that's influence. And that's your role now, not just to shine for your own path, but to illuminate the path for others who are still trying to find their footing. And sometimes being a lighthouse will feel lonely. Sometimes you'll wonder if anyone even sees your light, if it's making a difference, if it matters. But it does. Even if just one soul finds their way because of your presence, your story, your strength, that's everything. Because leadership isn't measured in numbers, it's measured in impact. And one life touched can ripple into 1,000 more. That's legacy. That's purpose. That's what lighthouses do. They change the course of ships without ever stepping onto them. You don't need to have all the answers to be a lighthouse. You don't need a spotlight. You just need to stay lit, stay honest, stay strong, keep living in alignment, keep showing people what it means to lead with love, with truth, with humility. Keep radiating that light that can only come from someone who's been through darkness and chose not to be consumed by it. Your glow comes from your growth, and your growth is what will guide others home to themselves. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs more light. People are overwhelmed with voices, opinions, and distractions. What they're really looking for is clarity, direction, and connection. That's what you bring. Not chaos, but calm. Not confusion, but clarity. Not judgment, but guidance. And the more you embrace this role, the more magnetic you become, because people can feel when someone is living their truth. They can feel when someone is being real, and that realness is the most powerful light there is. So stand tall, stay lit, and remember, even when no one acknowledges your presence, someone out there is being saved by your glow. Someone is navigating their way because you had the courage to be visible. Someone is making a better choice because your story gave them hope. That's what it means to be more than just a light. That's what it means to be a lighthouse. And that's who you are now, an empowered beacon of truth, love, and unwavering guidance in a world that desperately needs it.